Welcome back to Kari's Confessions, a nonprofit exec tells all. My name's Kari Anderson. For those of you that I haven't met yet, I'm principal with Incite Consulting. Prior to consulting, I spent 25 years in the nonprofit sector in leadership roles with 7 organizations. Now, I provide coaching and consulting services to ensure that nonprofits like yours have the structure, systems, and practices to do your best work. Wherever I go, I continue to hear that nonprofit execs need a space to gather, to receive tools, feedback, and advice that encourages them to stay the course. It doesn't matter if you're in a village of 182 or a metropolis of millions. Nonprofit work is both gratifying and lonely. I'm here to make sure that you have a chance to breathe, laugh, smirk, maybe get excited again about the important work that you do. So today's podcast topic is financial readiness, assessing your financial health to be in a position of growth. So, what's the big deal about financial readiness and growth at your organization? When we talk about growth, financial health is a critical component regardless of the size of your organization. Before I dig in on some specific items to help you determine your financial readiness, let's talk a minute about why financial health is so important and some higher level things to keep in mind. I've talked to a lot of EDs who openly express that financial acumen isn't their strength. It certainly wasn't mine when I started in the sector, and it took about 10 years for me to finally take it seriously. Frankly, I almost got fired because of it. If this is the case for you, I encourage you to access resources to build this skill. It is critical that you understand your organization's finances and can answer questions from donors, funders, and board members. I'll also share that if you become financially literate, it's much easier to be able to demand that your board does so as well. So, to that point, your board members need to understand your finances at a minimum baseline. They need to be able to ask questions and have the information presented to them to make healthy decisions. Financial health is also important because donors are savvy, and financial transparency, knowledge, and expertise is a must to be able to retain major donors and funders. So I'd say there's 3 takeaways from today's podcast. 1, what's included in a financial readiness assessment? 2, reviewing your internal foundation to be able to apply for and accept grants. And 3, the ability to analyze your cost management. So let's talk about what financial readiness and a financial readiness assessment is. So I think about your budget, right? And your budget reflects your mission and your priorities. A budget informs decision making. It provides accountability and informs constituents about your priorities. Budgets can help you identify challenges and indicate when something's wrong. Understanding budgets and creating accurate budgets is incredibly important. So, in order for you to do this, you've got to have financial policies and procedures in place, including internal controls and cash handling. And you're able to understand as you grow these policies that they need to grow with you as well as expanding, right? So, when you're thinking about financial readiness, it allows you to be able to provide a snapshot as to where you're currently at and what things you need to work on to get to a place where you're financially stable, to position your organization to secure future funding and operate effectively and efficiently. So, when I'm thinking about where to start in terms of assessing financial readiness, I'd want you to think about where is your current funding coming from? So, take a minute, grab a piece of paper, pen, and draw a pie, right? Or a pizza if you prefer. Briefly sketch out your funding sources and don't worry if you don't exactly know to the penny where they're coming from. I'm thinking about earned income, maybe memberships if you're a member organization, grant funding, maybe there's third party revenue, maybe you own property and receive rent on it. Obviously, there's philanthropic contributions, maybe there's some program revenue that comes in. My question for you after you've sketched it out is taking an objective look at it and asking yourself, is it diverse? If you were going to lose one particular source of funding, what would that do to your organization? Ideally, organizations have diversified streams of revenue, but you and your board may have made a decision to have a much larger stream of revenue for a reason, right? If there's a reason, it's maybe okay, but we want you to be able to know where all your money is coming from. The idea is that reliable donation sources look differently for each organization. Where you are in your business life cycle will matter. The size of your organization, what size your board is, how many or how few staff you have, etc. But the goals are the same. You want to be able to have reliable, diverse, and sustainable funding sources. If you've already got a strong donor base and you have reliable funding sources, then my next question is, in terms of assessing your finances, do you have an investment strategy? Might you have an endowment? Do you have a planned giving program? There are other tools that can help to create reliable sources of available funding. Newer organizations, right? Baby organizations will be building reliable funding sources by first building a donor base. We'll get into that in a little bit when we talk about fundraising specifics. Um, the second piece, right? So, takeaway number two today, I want you to think about what you're doing if you're an organization that has grant funding to create a solid foundation to receive grants. Here's what I mean. So, when you're assessing your financial readiness to receive grants, here are some things to keep in mind. Grantors, regardless of their size, right? Private family foundation, larger grant makers, they want to invest in organizations they're confident will achieve impact and meet the expectations of the proposal, right? They want to invest in you knowing that you've got the capacity to be able to make their money work, right? And in this case, make their money work for good. Grantors want to see the following items: that you've got the capacity to accomplish what you say you're going to accomplish. Do you have a proven history and reputation within your community? Do you have the data to support your claims? Funders, again, regardless of your size, right? Small and mighty or larger organizations, they want to see that you are financially stable. Funders love to see that you have diverse funding sources and aren't just depending on them to be able to fulfill your mission, right? Ideally, you'd have 100% giving from your board members. Again, it doesn't matter the size of the gift from the board member, but all board members must contribute financially in order for you to be applying for grant funding. Funders also want to see that you've got donations from individual donors, from corporate funders or partners, and other grant makers. Diverse funding sources demonstrate to grant funders that your work is important and that there's community buy in and support. This signals lasting impact and sustainability. That you follow best practices, right? Funders are really, really keen on you following nonprofit and subsector best practices, and that you've got internal procedures and policies in place across all aspects of your organization, including your board of directors, fundraising, programming, human resources, finance. You get the idea, right? At the time you receive a grant, systems need to be in place to monitor and track grant expenses, measure outcomes, and meet specific deadlines for reporting and other requirements by the funder. Failing to meet expectations because of a lack of readiness and planning can prove to be detrimental in securing future funding from not only that funder, but other funders. So, number three for today, right? I want you to think about how you analyze cost management. What does that mean? Cost analysis is important because it aims to paint an accurate picture of costs that can inform your decisions. If you've met me, right, and know me at all, you know that I love events. I love attending events. I love planning events, all of it, right? In the nonprofit sector, I have attended events, right? I've seen events that have taken up a lot of resources with an awful lot of return or a little return on investment, right? Lack of ROI. And this continues to happen because many nonprofits aren't performing an accurate cost analysis for their events. So I'm giving the event example, right? Because it seems to be event season right now. And we encourage those of you that have events to think about, do you include indirect cost such as staff time for marketing, development team members, your executive director, other staff members that contribute to planning or implementation of the event? Failure to include these numbers isn't accurately portraying the true cost of putting on the event. This is a small example, right? But I use it because most of us have either put on an event or have attended an event during your time either staffing or volunteering in the nonprofit sector. The same would go for any sort of programmatic activities you have. Your role each year when we're considering putting ourselves into a solid growth opportunity and potential for your organization is looking at what are we spending to actually bring in money, and does the cost justify, right, the work that we're actually doing. So performing cost analysis, right, for anything that you do, program, fundraising, events, etc., both includes direct and indirect costs that are part of the picture in order to be able to fulfill the initiative, program, or project, and it gives you a much more accurate, complete picture of your organization's finances. So, according to the Bridgeband Group, indirect costs include some of the following, right? General administration and management expenses, infrastructure costs, that could be rent and utilities, transportation, equipment depreciation, technical licenses, marketing costs, advocacy expenses, and other costs included from the general benefit of your organization's programs. So, if you perform a cost analysis, you can accurately allocate these indirect costs and understand better what it takes for your programs to operate. These accurate numbers can be used when applying for grant funding, communicating with donors, and to make more informed decisions about allocating resources and cutting costs. So, as I wrap up today, here's a reminder as to either homework or takeaways, right? Take your pick based on what your organization needs. Making a list of items that might need to be addressed for financial readiness, reviewing your internal foundation to be able to apply for and to accept grants, and be able to perform cost analysis on programs, projects, initiatives, and your fundraising events. For more information, please make sure to follow me on your favorite streaming platforms, including YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. For additional resources and tools, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can also check out my website at inciteconsultinggroup.com. Thanks for joining me today and have a great week.